ladies and gentlemen, we are talking all about Star Trek today, so spoilers for all Star Trek. Whoa! Hi everybody, welcome once again to the script department. We are here today to talk about the very exciting drop from First Contact Day, the Star Trek Picard Series 3 announcement, but we're going to talk about general Star Trek stuff as well and whatnot. But before we get into that, don't forget to go and pop over to our website, scriptdepartment.net, check out everything we do with our global network of screenwriters over there, and feel free to go back in time, Brad, that was good, wasn't it? Back in time, to any of our other YouTube stuff that we do here at the Script Department. So, Brad, Star Trek. Star Trek, my friend. How did you come to Star Trek, and what's the deal?
So, I'm not like an admiral level Trekkie. I'd say I'm like an ensign Trekkie.
Oh, an ensign
Trekkie.
Okay.
I know it quite well, and you didn't know, did you? You didn't know I watched Star Trek.
No, I didn't.
Your face when I told you, it was like you'd opened a new tridimensional chess set on Christmas morning, or on Captain Picard Day if you're on the Enterprise D. But you were like, oh my god, I can talk to someone about Star Trek.
I was so excited.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it so much. I am like I'm an admiral level. I'm an admiral level Star Trek fan, and captain. I'll go with captain level Star Trek fan because, as William Shatner says, never let them promote you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you guys will love that. Thanks. But I was very excited because it's my like little go-to thing if I'm not feeling very well, or if I'm like or if I just want something to chuck on in the background. It's my little comfort is Star Trek in all its varieties. So it's fun. It's very, very fun to be able to chat to you about it and to put that out there as well to all you guys. So how did you come to it first? Was it a childhood kind of thing, or was it something you got to a bit later?
Yeah, childhood. It was all, pre Next Generation. It was all original series. I mean, they were still churning it out on TV when there was only 3 or 4 channels.
Yeah.
And I remember my nan had got a load of videotapes, and she'd got a mock time, which is the one where Spock fights Kirk, and it's like do 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 do. I remember watching that over and over. It was so cool. So I watched that a lot, and I think Wrath of Khan came out when I was like 5 or 6, so I didn't see it at the cinema because it's too little. But I knew it was out because I'd seen Star Trek, the Star Trek 1 effectively on TV, with the V'Ger and all that kind of I was like, this is amazing. What's Voyager, Dad? And he was like, oh, it's this this thing that went out to space. It's still going. I was like, oh, is it going to turn into a sentient robot thing? And he was like, probably not. It's just like a bag of chips. I was like, okay, cool.
It's disappointing when parents tell you stuff like that.
Disappointing. Don't ruin my Star Trek. And I remember sitting and watching episode 1 of Next Generation with my whole family when it came out. It was, it was a big deal. They were talking about it all week. I was like, what, is Captain Kirk going to be in it? And, I remember discussing that no one would be better than Captain Kirk with my dad. And he's like, I don't know, well, let's see what they do. And then afterwards, I was like, yeah, he's no better than Captain Kirk. And then after about 2 weeks, I was like, oh, he's way better than Captain Kirk.
He's way better than Captain Kirk.
I don't know where I sit on it now, but, I was quite happy to see that. And the idea it was 100 odd years. Is it 100 and something years?
I don't think it's as much as 100. Yeah,
it's like 50 years or something. Because I remember Bones is in episode 1, and he's like at a super advanced age. And the idea is he looked after himself so well that he lived to like 165 or something. And it's like, oh yeah, and he was. They linked it back. They paid tribute, and then they went off. And then all of the other missions they do with the other series. So I was a big Voyager fan.
I love Voyager.
I love that. That was right when I was turning into a teenager, and there was so many cool things about it. My brother was more into Deep Space Nine than me, but I still watched it by proxy because he always had it on.
Yeah, of course.
So that and I was Enterprise was okay. I wasn't crazy about it. I was a big Quantum Leap fan, so I was like, hey, it's good.
This is cool. Yeah.
I like a good bit of Scott. He's a good guy. So I quite liked it. I was a bit gutted it didn't make it to the 7th season.
Yeah, That is a
It
shame.
was five, and I think is it apart from the original season, it's the only one that's been cut short to date.
It's fun. Yeah, I think so.
So that was quite sad to see that happen, because I liked what they were doing with it. But
Yeah.
I mean, I love Discovery. I think that's just amazing. I think they're doing such a good job with it. I mean, the way they've modernized the storytelling and the dialogue and everything about it, even though they're retelling a story and it's effectively a prequel.
Mm.
Well, it's not spoilers, but not right
yeah.
now. It's
Well,
a
no.
very, very distant sequel right
Yeah,
now.
that's
But
actually really true.
it's it started off pre Klingon War, and it was like, oh, okay, this is treading new ground in an old story. I get this, and it was great how they've touched on Spock and Pike and people like that, and they're now getting their own show, which is so exciting.
So exciting.
But of course, we're here to talk about a little bit about the trailer, the new Picard season 3 trailer, which was just brought a few tears to my eyes.
I agree. I mean, we watched it. We watched it moments before we pressed the record button, just to refresh, and we counted down, watched it at the same time. And it is. I think it is because I came to all of this a wee bit later. I didn't watch it so much when I was a kid. I was a teenager by the time I came around to it, and I kind of tripped and fell upon Next Generation. Quite by accident. And so for me, the debate of whether Kirk or Picard is better is just a moot point, because it's obviously Picard. And but simply because he was the one I came to first. And also because he's, objectively a better commander. But anyway, when they announced Star Trek Picard, it was just a phenomenal moment. I was so excited, and I've obviously gone on to watch the series as they've gone along. But I think this is the moment we've been waiting for, isn't it? With Series 3, the Series 3 announcement on First Contact Day, that these other characters are coming in. We saw a bit of Riker and Troy in Nepenthe. We've seen Brett Spiner because he just loves playing variations on Soongs and things like that. He's always popping up in stuff. And we've seen a few of these people. But and I should say, actually, we are current at the point of recording. We are on episode 6 of Star Trek Picard season 2, and Brad, you are on episode 2.5.
I'm halfway through episode 3. Yeah. I tapped out. It was really late last night, and I was like, "This is amazing," but one of my eyes is closed, and I was like, "I'm going to watch it tomorrow."
Watch this another day, yeah. So just for the record, there for everybody. But yeah, I think that the possibilities are just so great, and those little snippets of new dialogue that we get recorded in there from each of those main cast is so great. And you said before we started recording, Michael Dornan's sounding a little bit older now.
Yes, there's a real deepness to his voice, which I think is going to be cool for Worf to be like an aged warrior. Like, what are they going to do with that?
Yeah,
like that's so Worf. Exciting. Yeah, because you don't really see that many old Klingons. Obviously, they've all died honorably in various Bat'leth incidents, but it's these guys. To see an old Worf, he was always conflicted with his heritage anyway. Like he struggled with it being on a human ship for the Federation. Not always. He was proud to be there, but there were times that he clashed with his own heritage, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with an aged Klingon.
For sure.
I can't imagine what that's done to his mental state. It'd be quite interesting to see that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think because we can look to the Next Generation finale, which was All Good Things, I think it was called, for some reference here. I think because they did zoom far into the future, and we had Picard dealing with Irumodic syndrome. I can't remember which one it is. But yeah, and the lovely kind of mission they go on at 3 points in time, and we've seen a little bit of that paid off in Picard, the episodes of Picard earlier on. But in terms of the characters and where they end up, I think we can look to that a little bit, because Worf, because it was Nemesis was the last one, and he was back on the Enterprise for Nemesis, but just prior to that he was stationed on Deep Space Nine. And I think remained stationed. No, at the end of Deep Space Nine, he goes off to be a ambassador to Kronos, I think, doesn't he?
Yes.
I think that's his thing.
Yes, that was after he had the Defiant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Defiant was earlier, wasn't it? And he blew it up.
He blew it up. Yeah, I think they blew up
Blew
a
it
couple of
up.
Defiants.
Blew up the Defiant.
Yeah, because he was married to Dax, and then kind of left after. I think left as Cisco left as well. I think I can't quite remember that, but certainly yeah, he's back on board for Nemesis, and then as far as I understand, he's gone off and he's been an ambassador to the Klingon Empire. Which is interesting because that what has that meant, and that's the same as in All Good Things as well, which of course didn't really happen, but it's a similar fate for him because I'm pretty sure he was an ambassador there to the Federation from the Klingon Empire, which would be interesting to see if they go down that route and if that's the case. And yeah, old man Worf. I'm here for Old Man Worf. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of the original crew of Next Generation. I was thinking about it last night as I was watching Picard, or half of Picard. It was the top half.
Nice!
But
shiny head.
Yes, exactly. So I was watching that, and it had come. I was watching it after the announcement of I'd seen the trailer for season 3, and I was thinking which other versions of Star Trek other than the original season would garner such an emotional response from me and others as Next Generation. I don't think any of them. I can't imagine them going, oh, I know they brought Seven of Nine back for Picard, but they're not going to be, oh, Janeway's coming back. It's not. People aren't going to care that much, even though I loved Captain Janeway.
But Janeway sort of has come back a little bit. She's the
a little
in Prodigy. She's the hologram and whatnot. So she's involved in that, and I'm pretty sure Chakotay's back as well for that. But again, I totally agree with you. I think the only thing for me would be to see Cisco come back from the Prophets.
Possibly Cisco, possibly a couple of the characters from DS9, but I don't think all of them. I mean, Quark would be cool. That'd be cool to get that dude back. But it's like there are very few TV shows, just broadly TV shows, that can bring back people, and it be such a massive deal. Like such a huge milestone in TV history. Like Vince Gilligan's been doing it with Better Call Saul. And if you saw Breaking Bad, and it was a big show, a lot of people saw it. If you saw that and you're watching Better Call Saul, which is a prequel, and you're getting to see some of the spoilers, I'm not going to say who they are, but you're getting to see some of the characters who got brutally murdered or defeated or wiped out or whatever. They're there in their prime, and it's like, oh my god, this is amazing, and it's such a big deal. And there was coded messages in the titles of the shows, but there was so much effort that went into it, and there are very few shows that can do something like that. So the fact we saw Troy and Riker in series 1 of Picard was a huge feeling. It was like, oh my god, and you could feel. Weirdly, you could feel that, they had a lot of wistful moments between him and Picard in Next Generation. Most of them were just on screen, and you're like, oh, cool, yeah. But these were, you were like, oh my god, they're back together. Look at them. They're standing next to one another, and it's all jocular, and it's, and to have the whole crew back now is like, wow, this is going to be big.
And I think they've proved that they can do it as well, because those moments in Nepenthe in series 1 of Picard were so beautifully done. I've rewatched that episode a number of times, just in standalone, because it is to see, because they did it so well. It's they've all grown and they've all changed, and I know that was a complaint with for some people with Seven of Nine, and that this isn't Seven of Nine, but it's been 30 years, and and over the course of Voyager she became more human and whatnot, and started to shed some of her Borg sort of ideologies and things. So add another 30 years in there, and then see how human she becomes. I think it was brilliant, and it was developed and really, really interesting. And so I think that they've proved themselves trustworthy, and they've proved themselves. And I wonder if maybe that's why this is series 3. They've waited to do this because they wanted to make sure that they could do it properly and kind of work out exactly how to bring it together, and doing it in such a way that isn't just a gimmick and actually makes sense. Because I will admit to feeling a little bit sort of, when it's a recent episode, I'm not sure you've got there yet, but it's not a spoiler. Picard says, "Oh yeah, I trust these people. These are people I trust most in the galaxy," or something like that, about his current crew. And I did feel a little sting. I thought,
Yeah.
"Oh, come on, Picard, that can't be right. You've been through like one adventure with these guys, like everyone else.
It's like you were like a father to Geordie. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, right. But what about Beverly? Are you going to be together with Beverly? Go away, Yaris. We're not interested in you. Bring back Beverly.
Yeah, exactly.
The angry fanboy in me was a little bit sort of put out by that, and so to see this coming back, and to see them coming back together in something really interesting, and by the sounds of the little snippets of dialogue we get there, because I think Beverly Crusher says, "Oh, when the galaxy calls for you, Picard, you love it, love it," and he does love it, and it's so great to. It's really cool to hear that. It sounds as though it's going to be something really interesting.
Do you think we're going to get Wesley Crusher back in it or not? Like, he's not on the list, is he? Am I right? Or he's
no, he wasn't. Will Wheaton,
he wasn't there.
Listed.
Yeah, I mean, he's now become, a parody of himself. He's been Will Wheaton in TV shows now, isn't he? Like
exactly,
The Big Bang, and he's the fact that in The Big Bang, like, Sheldon hates him. Because he loved like him enemy, as Crusher, and he's like, you've ruined it for me, and it's funny, but I think these characters have become larger than themselves. The history of these characters is just incredible. I mean, I remember the fuss about, and I know there's this whole thing that every odd numbered Star Trek film is rubbish, or something like that, and it's pretty true. Even the one that it was something Simon Pegg said in Spaced, and he wrote the last one in the Kelvin, and he didn't do very well. It's like he was the self-fulfilling prophecy of his own. It was but it's to see the fuss of the first Star Trek films, and the Wrath of Khan, I feel, is still one of the best films I've ever seen.
I agree.
Like, I still put it up there in my top 10. What they did with space travel, they made you feel like you were in a compressed tube, like a submarine or something. That's what space travel is. That's what astronauts do. And I know these aren't astronauts in the same way that they are now, but they're still in a compressed metal thing out in space, and they're trying to navigate between the huge expanses between stars, and you really felt it, and the structure of that film and the way they did it, and they were bringing back these characters the same. They're going to do. I know it's another way around. They're putting them back. They're taking them from films and putting them into a TV show, because they only end up on films. But it's the same. It feels the same. It feels this huge deal, like the emotional moments they had in the original Enterprise crew films between them, like Spock dying and McCoy taking on his consciousness, and all of that really meant something. Absolutely, when you watch that film, it really, really meant something. And I think that's what's going to happen now in Picard season 3, or Star Trek Next Generation, which it's basically going to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is literally Next Generation part series 8 at this point, isn't it?
Episode 723.
Yeah. But what's so great about it as well is that they it's not in the trailer. It's not in the trailer we just watched. I don't think anyway. But but they have brought back a bunch of the production team as well, who worked on it. Yeah, a load of the production team. I don't have their names to hand, which is I should have done already. But yeah, a bunch of there's some writers, there's some set designers, some costume designs. So it really, really is kind of coming back to that point, and that sort of, we are ending where we left off, and I think it does feel like a very secular thing to go from All Good Things at the end of Next Generation, the series, and again, we picked up in Picard with Picard still dealing with the death of Data, which was obviously happened at the end of Nemesis. and so then to kind of come along a little bit more and to have that dealt with, and then come back to the end of the series proper with all of these characters, I think is such an interesting move. And I don't feel as though it's a gimmick either. It feels like quite a natural thing to do at this point. It feels like the right move in the story.
Yeah.
Which is
So I
difficult to
remember
say, actually, because we're not done with series 2 yet. But
It is. We don't know where it's going or what they're going to do, but I agree. I think in the series season 1 of Picard, they started to bring in 3 or 4 of the 3 original characters, wasn't it? And talk about other ones and the times they had together and stuff. And it felt good. It felt great. And loads of people were asking the question, are you going to bring back the whole crew? And they said no. Straight up, they said no. But no, we're 3 seasons down the line. This has been a big test bed to see what people wanted.
Yeah.
They want the crew back.
They want the crew back.
They want the crew back. There's a massive appetite for it. Even if you're not a Star Trek fan, you're probably going to tune in and see what happens. Like, what are they doing? How have they brought these guys back? I mean, it's like the Matrix 4. Like, people went to see that thing because they were bringing them all back.
Yeah,
it wasn't
exactly.
as good as the other Matrix films, arguably, but they were like, they brought them back and everyone wanted to see what was going on with that. Maverick, people are going to go and see that film. It's Top Gun 2, they're going to watch it. It's going to, I'm going to go and watch it. Like, it's going to, you can't get away from stuff like that. When it's that big a story and it's that much time's passed, you're going to watch it.
And we're in a bit of a time of this at the moment. There's a lot of this going on. There's a lot of, like, you've listed a bunch of them there, these revivals coming out. And I think in a way that, because and you can go back, faithful viewer, and check out our John and I talking about the Matrix and how we kind of landed on that. But but spoilers, not particularly favorably. But I think the thing that doesn't concern me about this in the same way, and though I don't think they're making the same mistake that the Matrix did, because, like we've said, there's a test bed. They've seen how it's gone. They've played around with it. They've listened to their audience. They've looked at things, and they've got it down. They're in their 3rd series now, and they can bring it in a way that isn't just a gimmick. Had they gone at the Matrix and gone, well, let's do a trilogy, and let's see, let's start off with some new characters, and then we can bring in those legacy characters. We'll drip feed some legacy characters in, and then maybe we'll get Neo in the 3rd part of the trilogy, because actually it's passing it on. Maybe it would have been better. I don't know. That's an entirely separate conversation, and one that I think we actually had in that video. But the point is, I trust it. I'm not worried about it in a way that I am with other things. In the way I was for Star Wars, to be honest with you. In the way that when they then said they were bringing these characters back and everything, and they were carrying on this story, it worried me at the time.
But everyone watched it.
But everyone watched it.
So we're bringing back Harrison Ford, Luke Hamill, and Carrie Fisher, and people literally running to the cinema. I mean, Force Awakens made $1 billion in a second. It was just done. It was and everyone watched it and went, "Okay, this is good." People just watched it out of curiosity anyway. But I think that, as with Last Jedi, and we've seen with a few other, and with the Matrix again, when they retcon things that are beloved to a series or a film, that's when they're treading on very, very, very thin ice.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you look at, me and John were talking about Alien. We did a rewatch of Alien, which is, again, another film in my top 10. I'm having a good week of film watching. And we spoke about the Neil Blomkamp possible film that was discussed around about the same time as Prometheus coming out. And that would bring back Ellen Ripley, Hicks, Newt, and Bishop from Aliens, retcon Alien 3 and 4. So that's half of the original series of films would be retconned. It's fine because they still exist. You can still watch them.
Yeah, sure.
But people were welcoming of it because 3 and 4 weren't as loved as the first 2. They have their place in it, but I think people were like, give us that. Please. It still might happen, possibly. Please. But it might happen. But if they were trying to retcon Alien or Aliens, people would be like, no chance.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Leave our stuff alone.
So they've got to be really careful with what they do, because Next Generation's 7 years, hundreds of episodes of incredible TV storytelling, People loved it. People love the characters, so they have to be careful. I'm not saying they're going to retcon anything, but they have to be careful with handling them. And that there's a solid history of what happened with that crew, and they can't mess about with it too much.
For sure. And it's interesting, we talk about, we were recently talking about Moon Knight. We've got our little series of Moon Knight stuff going on in Marvel there. And talking in terms of cinematic universes, well, Star Trek did it first. Star Trek did it before anything. Well, maybe not anything, but they did it very, very early on with the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, I think, running concurrently at one point, or certainly with two of them running at the same time, and then going on to Enterprise and whatnot. And so I think it's interesting. It will be really interesting to see where we join these characters and at what point, and how it links in with the wider narrative. But there be dragons with things like that, and there be things that you can get very wrong. And talking about kind of retconning things, it's very easy to accidentally retcon something when you are dealing with a universe of that size. Because to date, we have, so you've got the original Star Trek series, then the animated series, which is also canon, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, then Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds as it's coming out, then you've got Prodigy and Lower Decks. And so and then plus the films, generally speaking. So that is 11 individual series of Star Trek plus the various other kind of properties out there. How do you navigate that in a way, because the Marvel stuff is tightly controlled from a single point of view and is planned out, allegedly. And so, but with something like this, which is over 50 years old at this point, how do you do that, and can you always do that? And I suppose the way of doing that is to have moments like this where you just go, sod it, let's bring them back, and let's just do it, and let's just have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, like the Kelvin timeline was a very elegant solution, and it proved for some brilliant, character changes in Kirk. And how that worked, and I think
you a fan of the Kelvin timeline? Because I'm a big fan of those.
I love it.
Story.
I love it. Yeah, I mean that scene where I loved it straight away. As soon as I knew what was going on, I was like, "Oh my god, this is going to be great!" And the scene where Kirk's on Earth as a boy and he's stolen is it a Mustang?
Yeah.
And he's got the Beastie Boys. Oh my god!
So great.
that track's got such a place in my life, like my growing up. It's so big, and for it to be that track, I was like, oh my god, this is
listening to that. Oh.
Yeah, yes. So that was great. I love that, and I love how they've dealt with it. I mean, there are loads of different ways that people deal with continuity and things like this. I mean, on set you have a continuity person, but they deal with. They're not necessarily the script continuity person, which you also have. They'll be dealing with, that was left in the wrong place. Oh no, you were holding it in the other hand. All this kind of stuff, and this applies across information as properties as well as action. I worked at the BBC for a few years, a while back, and I used to make the TV promos. And we were doing a few for EastEnders. So we went to Elstree, went around the set, and went in the Queen Vic and stuff. I went and met a few of the writers so I could chat to them about what was coming. And one of the group was like, "How'd you do? There's been God knows how many episodes." And they're like, "We don't know how many episodes there are because no one's ever counted them." Well, but that was their answer. Of course,
really? That's counted. Great. I love that.
No, they know. They just didn't want to. They were like,
yeah.
"I haven't counted them. You counted them." No one's ever counted them. Well, how do you keep up to speed with it? And they were like, "Well, we've got this thing, this machine," and it was literally like an Amstrad machine with DOS on it, an Amstrad like 286 PC or is it a Nimbus, I think, with DOS on it, and they'd got this database on there of all the events. So it had been made very early on, and there was still this was only about 8 or 9 years ago, and they were still using this computer, and they'd got it all backed up on floppy disks. Thousands and thousands and thousands, and they got it all backed up on a secondary hard drive, and they just used this thing. And it's like, has Peggy ever spoken to such and such. No,
Yeah.
great. There's a storyline, and they
do
just had
this.
this machine. Ironically, it wasn't on a BBC computer because that was built at the same time as the Amstrad. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
it was. It was just to see that. I was like, oh my god, there are so many pitfalls with shows, and I'm sure like Hollyoaks and shows like that have all got the same thing because there's so many
Coronation
episodes,
Street.
3 a week.
My God.
Coronation Street,
Yeah.
and they'll have some sort of like cast iron continuity because it's not very often they get that much wrong as far as like the history of the show. And it's 20, 30 years or something, isn't it, that these shows have been going for? And it's, I'm hoping they're going to have a similar Amstrad somewhere in the, is it Paramount that own it? I can't remember that.
Yeah.
The vaults of Paramount. Right, fire it up,
Yeah.
get the discs out.
Yeah.
Because there are, it was 1989 when they started Next Generation, and there's a lot. There's a lot of it.
99 when they started Next Generation. I thought it was way
89.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Watching it. Who's that ball guy? Where's Captain Jack? But yeah, it was. Yeah, there's a lot there, and they're going to wrestle with it, but I think people care about it enough for them to do a good job.
For sure. I mean, the Star Trek, the world of Star Trek, we're in a kind of we're in a bit of a renaissance of Star Trek at the moment, which all began with Discovery, and we have this other thing coming out, which I am so excited about, which is Strange New Worlds, and the trailer drops that have been going on with the little character trailers and things like that. Oh man, it just looks so great, but it raises an interesting thing with Star Trek, and I don't like to people tend to quite quickly compare Star Wars and Star Trek because they are, they both have the word star in them, but that is kind of about, and they're set broadly in space, but that is largely where it ends. They're different genres, they're different, it just they don't really compare. But having said that, I'm going to compare them because they are both going through this sort of renaissance time at the moment. We've got multiple Star Wars series coming out, multiple Star Trek series, etc., etc. So it's interesting. The Star Wars seem to be going down very, very staunchly down the route of de-aging and computer generating and kind of bringing characters back like that. Whereas Star Trek is going down a more traditional recast and a recast kind of route, and with the entire Ethan Peck, I think, is as Spock in the Discovery kind of world, and things like that. So, which I think makes sense because you couldn't on a TV budget that isn't owned by Disney. I don't think you could superimpose Leonard Nimoy's face in a convincing way and have him be a main character. I'm still not convinced they did it with Luke Skywalker, but that's another conversation. But it's interesting. It's interesting the path they've chosen to go down there. They're still choosing to make these series, even though the original actors can't play those parts anymore. I think that's fine. I think a lot of people don't necessarily. What do you think?
I think it's quite interesting because both in Star Wars and Star Trek, they've had old characters come back as old versions of themselves. And the films with Star Wars, they did that with all of the original cast, and it was a wonderful experience. But now they want to go back to retread a bit of the past. They need to de-age them, whereas with the only de-aging we've seen happen so far in Star Trek is with Q, because obviously he's supposed to be ageless. And he was, what was it, episode 2?
Yeah.
They were really clever because they know the technology's not quite there yet. So it was like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It was like, Jean-Luc, you're old. I'm going to be old too. Yeah. And it was gone. It was gone. And he looked great. He looked really good. And he was there for a brief second. You couldn't really question, the lighting or any of that kind of stuff. It was great. But I think there's the fact that they've recast. I think with Strange New Worlds, apart from Spock, it's been quite easy because the whole thing's been created from an unaired. It was The Cage, from an unaired TV show of the original series. It's the whole thing. So that's great. It. The web. That's where I know Pike was in it 4 or 5 times. It's like just a head on a box, with the two lights. The two lights. And we got a bit of
Pike.
that in Discovery. Yes,
Yeah.
2D Pike. We got a bit of that in Discovery as well, didn't we? With his updated version. But
I think we're going to get some more of that as well. There was a little bit of that.
Yeah, he's very Kirk-like, I think, Pike. It feels fun. It feels like they're going to really have fun. He's like, let's hit it. He's a cool guy, and they've got Kirk in it. Kirk's going to be in it. It's like, of course Kirk's going to be in it. Why wouldn't he be in it? And they've cast the guy out of the Vampire Diaries. He looks like a good casting. I think he's going to be a good Kirk.
I think so.
But of course they're not going to get the Kelvin timeline in it because it's not that timeline. They're different people. Like, it's a different timeline. So I couldn't see them trying to do an entire series of deep fake Spocks and things. I think it would be terrible. It would be more of a curiosity than anything. People who just want to see what they did with this weird technology. But I think the castings they've done that I've seen so far are really good. They're really, really good. You can see them. I mean, I think the castings they did in the Kelvin timeline were all good as well. I thought Carl Urban was a great Professor Bones.
He was so great.
Professor Bones,
Dr. Bones, yeah.
Professor Bones. But I think all the castings in that were great. Totally heartbroken still about Anton Yelchin. He was the best Chekhov. He was so good in that role. And you could see they were all tightly knit, and that after the casting, they became a family. Obviously, like, they spent a lot of time together, and they weren't going to do another film for a long time, and now it looks like they are going to do another film, and it's like, brilliant. Okay, but yeah, I think there are the castings they've done are great. I think it's the right way to go instead of the de-aging and stuff. I think it's going to be quite an interesting series to get it stuck into.
I totally agree. I think it feels very optimistic. It feels like an optimistic view of the future coming out of those trailers, and we've had that with Discovery a wee bit. They've kind of changed course for, excuse the pun. Thanks. Yeah. In their kind of later efforts when we've done spoilers actually, so I don't need to worry about it. When they've shot off to the future at the end of season 2, they've changed course and they've tried to be kind of a little bit more upbeat and optimistic, and arguably actually with the introduction of Anson Mount as Pike as well, that was happened there. The first series of Discovery, I think, was quite dark and kind of quite brooding and things like that. I would make the argument that I think they've gone too far into the optimism with Discovery, because it feels as though you can't do anything in that show without stopping briefly to discuss how we feel about it, and I do feel like that gets in the way of the action sometimes. But we can do a whole video talking about Discovery properly, and I think we should. But I think Strange New Worlds sits very neatly within that timeline, within that Discovery verse, as it were, the reimagining of that original series timeline. And I think they seem to have got the aesthetic down. And you know what? I'm just excited to see the original Enterprise again. I'm excited to see that flying around. I've got a little Eagle Moss model of it down there, and that sits on the desk, and I look at it sometimes and go, yeah, man, this is great.
I've made it.
I've done it, yes. It sits next to a TARDIS, and I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, man, I think it's going to be great. I'm excited. Are you excited for the future?
So excited! Like, there's so many cool things coming out. I think in between Enterprise and Discovery felt like a dark time. Like, of course, the films like were great. The Kelvin timeline, they came out in that period, and it was wonderful. But it felt like there was a death of Star Trek on TV. It felt like, oh, hang on a minute, is this it? And it definitely wasn't. There's so much coming. I agree with what you say about Discovery, that what they've done. I think Michael's characters become too agreeable and cheery and smiley, and it's like, some of the male characters in it haven't, but no, the female captain, they made her like, oh, let's all be nice to one another. And it's like, that wasn't where she came from. That wasn't what she was like. And just the weird thing that they've took the AI orb thing over to the future, and it still hasn't really. It was in the pilot's eyepiece, and then it was hiding. It's now hiding in the ship, and it's become a nice AI. And it's like, is that? I don't know. Is that where it should go. But time will tell on that. I think there's plenty to happen on it, and we wouldn't have had Strange New Worlds without Discovery. I love Discovery. I'm not saying it's failed. I'm saying it's gone too cheery, like you say. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's going to be very exciting for the original cast of TNG coming back.
Oh man, it's just, I feel giddy. I feel so giddy about that, and just the it's a weird time to announce it. It's because we are only halfway through series 2 of Picard at the moment. I know they filmed these series 2 and 3 back to back, but it is kind of a weird time to announce it because it does some. But then I was going to say it takes away some of the drama from series 2 because we know that Picard's surviving onto series 3, but at the same time we also know that Picard's surviving to series 3 because they filmed series 3 and series 2 back to back. So whatever, who knows?
Yeah, if they reveal the crew storyline at the end of season 2, they've dropped the ball massively. Like, what would they do that? Like, they could have had this huge finale and and then drop the trailer and but time will tell. Maybe it'll be a big shock, and maybe this is because they were worried about losing people.
Yeah,
because the end of season 2 is so dramatic, but maybe, we'll find out.
We'll find out. Brad, thanks, man. This has been incredibly fun. Love it. I think let's do some more of some more Star Trek stuff. I think it'd be good to chat about, do some retrospectives on some series in the build up, and then once let's have a look at it. Are we good? Have we cleared Red Alert? Do you think? Are we in?
I think so. Yeah, I think unless there's any more anomalies coming up on us, I don't know.
I don't think so. All right, for now then, computer cancel Red Alert. We should be. There we go. We're all good.
Nice.
That was smooth, wasn't it? I'm so happy with that. Nice one. Thanks, Brad. If you guys enjoyed that, then feel free to like, share, and subscribe. As I say, we'll probably be dropping some more Star Trek stuff knocking around. And if you like this kind of interesting world, the science fiction fantasy world, then we've got a load of stuff on Star Wars knocking around there and too. So yeah, travel, have a look at what we've got. And until next time, live long and prosper.